This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. I think some of you guys might be a little bit surprised I'm making this video about maybe not using enough reverb. There is a reason for this, and it is that actually what I do at home is kind of quite a lot different to what I do live. And live, actually, reverb mix that I've got on this HX Stomp is down at like 5%, right? So barely any reverb. What I'd be doing is, so this is into a deluxe reverb. So I set things up so that it's going to work like that, and what I normally would do is for a solo tone I would kind of just kick on a delay. I've been listening back to some of my live stuff and I just think it sounds a little bit not exactly how I want it to, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm not using enough reverb. And there's a good reason why I wasn't. But here's an intro where I'm using quite a lot of reverb, but no delay into the deluxe reverb. And at the end of the clip, I'm going to kind of turn things back down to sort of 20% and then back up to 30%. So let me know what you think. Now, the reason that I was doing this all along is that because basically I've been gigging modelers for, you know, around about a decade at this point, as well as amps as well, but modelers were kind of where I learned some of this stuff from, is the idea that in order to get heard kind of clearly with a modeler, you kind of want to go a little bit drier than what you would use at home, you know, when you're dialing things in. with studio monitors and stuff, because necessarily your guitar tone is probably going to be in a mix with singer, keyboard player, bass, and there might not be amps on stage, so you're going to kind of be competing with all that stuff. And if you have loads of reverb, loads of delay, you will probably not necessarily find yourself that easy to be heard. That's, I think, where this idea that I would just basically stop using reverb live has come from. The other thing is that in the bands that I'd be playing in, typically the gigs would either be in a marquee, which is very dry, of course, or they'd be in like these big converted sort of rural buildings in the UK, these kind of big stone buildings with a lot of glass and stuff like that, and a lot of reflections. And same thing again, where it's like, if I want the guitar to be heard, I don't want to be adding reverb to a situation when there's already a load of ambient reverb just by the nature of the room itself. Then I'm now gigging with my buddy Jake quite a bit at this venue in Lyme Regis, the Ship Inn. We're there again on May the 4th if you're not doing anything. But so the kind of situation is quite different there, where it's like we can both use amps at good volumes, but it's actually kind of a smallish room, but it's a pub where you're going to have bodies in the room, live bodies, of course. And so actually, I think what I should have been adding here is reverb rather than delay, because I think the delay just can, once you start to be able to hear it really clearly repeats and there's no reverb, it just kind of sounds like just a little bit annoying to me. Whereas, so let me just try it here. I'm using the Glitz reverb. My buddy Jake has a Strymon Flint, which he uses for this sort of stuff, and sometimes on like the cleaner, funkier stuff, it can be a bit overwhelming. He sent me his settings and it does vary from gig to gig, but something like this, and the mix was surprisingly high, I thought, and he's using the plate sound, right? So, but what I thought was, so that's my basic starting point. If I take that up to 20%, that's about where it needs to be heard. Now, the Glitz reverb in Helix has a 44 millisecond pre-delay where I've got it set. So it's already doing kind of all I need. I don't necessarily need delay alongside that, depending on what I'm doing. And if I'm doing lines, then not like that, but you know, like then that could be plenty. But the other thing that I've noticed is that in the mix, of course, even when it's mic'd with an SM57, these things sound a little bit drier than they do whilst you're playing them. So this is now at 30%. If I set like a slightly shorter decay, this is another thing that my instinct would have been, okay, I'll go for a longer decay but a lower mix. But what about a shorter decay and a higher mix? Does that make more sense? And then the other thing is, of course, for like rhythm tones, I don't want reverb on that at all, because that just doesn't really work. It's really only for lead tone. This is dynamic plate now. That's got 10 milliseconds pre-delay. The mix is at 25, now up to 30. Let's turn the mix up even higher, maybe? That's the mix at 45 now, which is way higher than I'd ever go. And that's just with the HX Stomp here, but it's making me think about this stuff. I typically at home use the Glitz reverb at around like 23%, but we're now in a live situation, now going into a mono speaker, and you know, potentially you might need to have that mix because of the whole kind of summing to mono reverb versus stereo reverb. It's a whole different kettle of verbs, and so I've just been thinking, like, I probably need to rethink this, and instead of even the accompanying sort of ambience that comes along with my solos, which is normally delay, I think for me I'd happily solo without a delay at home. I've tried turning off just the delay and leaving on the Glitz reverb. The reverb is the more important part to me for kind of comfortable solos, and so I think I need to change my approach on this, really. And of course, depending on the venue, you might want it to be way less than that. That's 19% now, which is kind of seems high to me, but actually when you listen to it, like, is that enough to actually hear it? This is now at 30. Now 40. If we went all the way to 50, I think for me, with that dynamic plate, somewhere around 34%. If I add delay to that, remove the delay, reverb. Remove the delay. Remove the reverb. I think for me the reverb is the more important part, so I need to flip this on its head, and my lead tones, I think I'm going to introduce a reverb rather than just some additional delay, because I'm messing around with an expression pedal trying to get that balance right to give me that right level of ambience. I think reverb is what I should be adding on an expression pedal. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you had this realization, is it something to do with you from switching mollers to amps, like having to flip this on its head for different venues? It's definitely an eye-opener for me, Just looking back at sort of live clips of my playing and thinking that is like sounds quite dry, even though I know there's quite a bit of delay on it. It's because I've been just avoiding reverb. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Cheers.